Hello and welcome to this microcourse titled Trauma-Informed Literacy Instruction. Right now we'll jump right into Chapter 1, the Introduction. Let's start with a preview of what's to come. In the first chapter, this one, that is, I'll explain what trauma is and how it should inform teacher practice. In Chapter 2, I'll teach you what student choice, voice, and passion are, and why and how to increase them. Chapter 3 will do the same with embedding social skills instruction into all lessons. In Chapter 4, I'll show you the what, why, and how of chunking. And lastly, in Chapter 5, we'll explore student self-assessment. Now we'll take a look at the objectives for this microcourse on trauma-informed literacy instruction. By the end of this course, you will be able to identify key characteristics of trauma-informed instruction, create and implement 4 lessons that use strategies to support trauma-informed instruction, and explain how all students, including trauma-affected students, responded to your trauma-informed approach. So, to continue on with Chapter 1, let's explore the basics of trauma. For a much deeper explanation of trauma, watch my nano course in Thinkific titled Trauma in the Classroom. For a quick overview in this video, I'm going to answer the question, what is trauma? Trauma is any experience that causes deep distress and during which the individual feels they cannot control the situation. Trauma has a distinct and undeniable impact on the human body and brain. Evidence of student trauma can be seen in the classroom. Here's why. The traumatized brain releases the stress hormone cortisol. It's the body's response to fear. That's actually normal and serves the purpose of helping early humans survive. Our students, however, are probably not at risk of being attacked by a predatory animal. This once useful survival mechanism can become problematic if it occurs too often. When the brain is in what I'll call high alert, the body is too. The limbic system, aka the lizard brain, is the part of the brain responsible for regulating our body's responses to fear, like heart rate, blood pressure, and respiration. When a child experiences ongoing and severe trauma, their bodies are more often on high alert or experiencing the physical response to fear. Their baseline vitals, or their resting heart rate and blood pressure, may be elevated. This can impact the development of the higher areas of functioning in the brain, the areas responsible for things like planning, emotional regulation, and problem solving. Therefore, what teachers and other caregivers need to know is that people who've experienced severe trauma, that is, severe enough to cause the ongoing disruption of baseline biological functions, may not have developed the structures necessary to perform important skills required for success in school. That is, they may not have developed, or at least not fully, the abilities to control impulses, regulate their emotions, stay organized, and solve social problems. The awesome news is that the brain is malleable. When trauma-affected students learn and repeat appropriate coping strategies, their brains can actually form new, more helpful pathways. So, trauma can be thought of as existing along a continuum. For more on this concept, see the nano course on trauma. For now, here's a list of what might count as trauma. Serious illness, especially that involving excessive hospitalization or painful procedures. Serious injury. Witnessing the trauma of others. Sexual or physical abuse. Neglect. Surviving a natural disaster. Alterations in family dynamics and location. So that can be parents get divorced or simply move from one town or city to another. As you can see, trauma is a subjective concept that is different for each individual. So, trauma impacts students' abilities to function in our classrooms. What should we do about it? First, let's differentiate between a typical behavior management approach and a trauma-informed approach. In a typical behavior management approach, things are cut and dry. A student follows the rule, and if they don't, there's a consequence. Many students respond well to this type of structure. But this method puts the control in the hands of the adults. Adults decide what counts as right and wrong, and what the consequence will be. This method also is one that supports an us against them mentality. A trauma-informed approach, on the other hand, takes into account the fact that trauma-affected students likely have not developed the skills necessary to control their behavior consistently. So, with that in mind, let's get started. A trauma-informed approach includes each of the following components. Teachers should work with students to build a strong relationship, develop replacement behaviors as opposed to handing out punishments. So this is very much a partnership, and the process actually helps to build that relationship. And teachers should help students take ownership over their behavior, the instruction, and assessment. Teachers also need to be sure to practice self-care. Before we can take care of others, we need to make sure that we take care of ourselves. A simple paradigm shift from thinking a student is purposely misbehaving and maybe has it out for you, to the mentality that a student has not developed the skills yet required to do what you're asking, can strengthen your relationship with the student, reduce your stress, and help that student gain the skills they lack due to unthinkable adverse experiences. As mentioned a couple times in this chapter, I go into much deeper detail in the course titled Trauma in the Classroom. It's a nano course, so it's 1/3 the size of this one. If you have any unanswered questions remaining after watching this video, definitely check it out. As we conclude this chapter, let's review what we've covered so far. Trauma impacts students' abilities to manage themselves in school. Teachers can do a lot to mitigate the impacts of trauma, and this includes taking care of yourself first.